The Green America Hometown Tour is brought to you by Atreon IT Technology, Rhode Island College, Cardi's Furniture, and the Artman Group. Welcome to show 3 of our 5-part series on Rhode Island's second largest city and one of the true hubs to tourism and economic growth. Warwick was founded in 1642 by Samuel Gordon, when a Narragansett Indian chief agreed to accept 144 fathoms for what was known then as the Shahamet Purchase. This included the present-day towns of Coventry and West Warwick. In 1648, Gordon was granted a charter by Robert Rich, Earl of Warwick and Governor-in-Chief for the colonies. Because of this, the name of the settlement was changed from Shahamet to Warwick. In the first show, we mentioned that in 1772, Warwick was the scene for the first violent act against the crown, when local patriots boarded the British revenue cutter HMS Gaspee. The patriots then stripped the Gaspee of all cannon and arms before setting her afire. Pretty interesting history. Just as important, though, Warwick's 39 miles of coastline are graced with many beautiful stretches of beachfront. This magnificent shore lured many of America's wealthiest citizens into spending their summers in Conimicut, Warwick Neck, Oakland Beach, and Buttonwoods. Before the Great Depression and the Great New England Hurricane of 1938, more millionaires called Warwick their summer home than any other location in the country. Now, this shoreline is very much a part of this city's assets. And for the next 2 shows, we will take a close look at how these and other assets will allow their citizens, their businesses, schools, and diverse organizations to both produce and embrace green in their quest to build a bright, sustainable future in villages, neighborhoods, and shorelines. Stay with me as we start that quest with you. We are back on ReNewable now. I am here with Margie Ryan, who works with the city of Warwick in planning and landscape as well, right? Margie, thanks so much for being with us. You, I know, Dan Geegan. We have done the show together on Grossmont. Terrific show up in Providence. So nice to see you again.
Good to be
and
back.
Steve, I'll make sure I get that last name right, Steve Stikos. And Steve, you're with the West Bay Community Center, and you do some farming too, which is terrific. We are here today to talk about farming and agriculture in the city of Warwick, which I think is kind of undervalued and not fully understood. And I didn't really understand how much of an emphasis was here until I started to do some research. And then we're going to talk also about Rocky Point, a little bit of its history, what it is today, how the city has preserved it, and what you're doing in and around there, and also talk about some of the parks and recreation in general. Let's start with you. You're involved in kind of some of the agricultural issues here in the city. Can you tell us what is the state of agriculture in Warwick?
Actually, my background is in landscape architecture, and we've been doing a lot of work in the city with tree planting.
Oh, you have?
Through the years, and the city actually has a little tree farm up at Barton Farm where Steve is working with West Bay Community Action.
Too funny, reminds me when I first met your mayor, we were planting, or certainly I was, he was there too, in a pouring rain with the Rhode Island Tree Council over at
I was there
City
that
Park.
day.
Were you there?
Yes,
It was pouring rain. So obviously that's one of your focuses, and so you work at some of the different facilities here in Warwick. I assume you also do some urban planting, right, as you try to look at Apponaug and other places here in the city. We've got a lot of that going on in Providence too.
We do. We've planted thousands of trees through since the mid-90s. We've planted trees through the city's planting program. We've reviewed plans for commercial development, for subdivision development, and especially recently we've been really looking at incorporating all of the reasons, like the low impact developments design guide manual that's been put out by the state. We're looking at ways to make tree planting more sustainable.
Yep, and you work with the Tree Council.
We've been
right?
partners with the Rhode
That's
Island Tree
good.
Council since early
Well,
1990s
there's
as
so
well.
many benefits, as you well know, and we talked to a landscape architect group out in East Providence that have been talking about how now when they develop projects, they're right there, they're not at the back end, because it is such an important consideration for any of these contractors and builders. Dan, let's talk a little bit, and then we'll move over to Steve. What about farming in Warwick? What's it like right now?
Well, in Warwick, the city's had for the last 15 years, a fairly strong outreach to protect our remaining farms. Historically, we were a farming community, a collection of villages, farming community. Post-World War II, the city residential development exploded, and we've lost a lot of our farms. So we've really focused on protecting what's left. I think it's about 170 acres in the last 15 years we've protected either by purchasing development rights, fee simple ownership of the property. Several of the farms are still active, such as the Morris Farm near Bishop Hendricken High School, the Barton Farm, which Steve is involved in working on. We've recently worked with the State Department of Environmental Management to protect the Rocky Point Blueberry Farm, 8-acre pick-your-own farm right adjacent to Rocky Point.
Yeah, that was pretty recent. I saw that, and we're going to talk about that. That was a terrific expansion out there. Steve, Barton Farm, how big is it? What do you do?
Well, the property, I think, is 65 acres. And West Bay Community Action, which is an anti-poverty agency,
That's
a
what, here
nonprofit
in Warwick or all
Yep.
over West Bay? Or?
It's Warwick, East Greenwich, and Coventry.
So you have your own farm?
Yes, and we grow for the food pantry in Buttonwoods. And so we have a volunteer crew and myself, and we run a vegetable farm and grow. We also have markets. We have a market at Kent Hospital at lunchtime on Fridays, and we have a market on Tuesday afternoon in Buttonwoods. So we sell the produce to raise some money to run the farm, and then whatever's left goes to the food pantry.
Now, how big is the West Bay community? Because I've seen some of your facilities, and you seem to be expanding and providing a lot of services. How big are you?
I don't know the answer to that, honestly.
You've expanded a lot, though.
Well, it has a lot of services there in Buttonwoods, senior services. We have an adult education program. We have the food program. We have a child care center. So there's a Meals on Wheels program.
And how did you end up with farming as part of it?
Well, I worked at a vegetable farm, and then they hired me. I think I didn't start the farm. Other people started the farm for the very purpose of,
But it's
you go to a food pantry, it's mostly canned goods and food that isn't of the best nutritional quality. And so the idea was to produce fresh fruits and vegetables to improve the nutritional offerings for low-income people.
It's a great asset, right? And it's a tremendous resource. That is terrific. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Maureen Carey, publisher of Rhode Island Natural Awakenings magazine. I'm excited about our new partnership with ReNewable Now. Natural Awakenings is a free monthly publication committed to providing services and information to our community to improve your quality of life physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You'll find cutting-edge information on natural health, nutrition, fitness, personal growth, green living, and the products and services that support a healthy lifestyle. You can find our magazine at health food stores, coffee shops, yoga studios, libraries, and wherever free publications are generally seen. We are locally owned, locally produced, and supporting the Rhode Island economy naturally. You can find us online at rinaturalawakenings.com.
We are different. Society should aspire to be more like us.
Be part of the first class. Get energized. Get outside.
Hold on, guys. It's gonna get bumpy.
And get moving. Experience the power of physical activity. movement at actionheroalliance.com.
We are back on ReNewable Now. Dan, let's talk a little bit more about, so Warwick has a lot going on. We've talked about that in prior segments, a lot of different industries, a lot of different developments. Why do you think preserving farming is important? It kind of fits well, obviously, with the state model. Agriculture has been a very big part of our success. It's been expanding, a lot of farmers markets, but why is the city focused on this, and what's the return on investment?
Well, we work closely with the state. A lot of our protection efforts wouldn't be possible without the Farmland Protection Act. But really the farms, I think statewide, generate about $100 million a year in market value and $90 million a year in resource value, habitat protection, stormwater removal, flood prevention, that type of thing. But the farms also contribute to a sense of place, sense of community. The Blueberry Farm, for example, people love to go there. They see the stone wall, vintage New England in Warwick. You can go, you can pick a few pounds of blueberries. They're from Warwick, from Rhode Island.
And then go walk at Rocky Point.
And then go walk at Rocky Point. Exactly.
It is fabulous. It is beautiful. And you just stepped in. And when you did that, how did you? So you preserve, so it can't be developed. You own it. What exactly did the city do?
We worked with the State Department of Environmental Management, who bought the development rights to the farm. So the farm is still in private ownership, but it's protected forever, either as open space or as a farm. They still live there and own it privately, but it's protected.
That's terrific. Off camera, you were telling me a little bit, you're working on a grant and working with other cities and towns?
We had the opportunity to participate in a grant with the YMCA, and it was we chose West Bay Community Action to partner up with because it was just such a perfect fit. The grant is all about it's transforming communities, healthy communities. So the way that West Bay is improving access to low-income residents for healthy foods. We're also hoping to be able to do a study that will start looking at all of our open spaces, creating green links for pedestrian opportunities that will link these parks and green spaces, open spaces together. Even perhaps providing access to some areas of Route 2. We're looking at walkable, safe walks to school, bringing that all together. So these were all elements of the grant.
Which I just read has a tremendous impact on kids and learning. I don't know if you read that with where they're walking to work, to school, and what a difference it makes. It's a tremendous ideal. Let's stick with that though. How many parks do we have in Warwick? And Rocky Point obviously went through quite a transformation recently. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I'll talk about Rocky Point.
Yes.
The city recently worked with DEM, again, the Department of Environmental Management, and NOAA through their KELP program, their land conservation program, to purchase 41 acres of waterfront property, with which city workers created a 1-mile walking trail. It's now a passive park on the water, access to the water. People are going there, they're walking, they're fishing, they're biking.
It's a beautiful spot.
It is a great spot.
Beautiful
you can look
spot.
right down Narragansett Bay, you can look towards Providence, and it's just a great project.
And again, why did the city feel it was important? Is it more quality of life? Is it you need to preserve land? Is it that it will be developed at all in the future?
It certainly was under development pressure, and it still is, the remaining 70 or 80 acres, but it definitely for quality of life. We're an urban area. There are certain key parcels we look to protect. It gives people opportunity to go for a walk when they get home from work in an urban area, ride their bikes safely, take their kids there, go to the beach. So it's a lot of things: healthy lifestyle, quality of life,
Yep.
and protection from development.
Steve, here in Warwick, are there a lot of farmers markets, and do you deal with that at all, or are you just, your farm is focused on providing food supplies to the West Bay?
Well, we have a market at, as I said, at Kent Hospital, and we have a farm stand at the corner of Buttonwoods and West Shore Road. I know there's a farmers market at Goddard Park. There's a farmers market in Patuxent Village, in the Cranston side, but very close to Warwick. And of course, you can go to Morris Farm anytime, and buy fresh produce right there at their stand.
Yep.
Those are the ones that I'm aware of.
So your mandate for West Bay Community Action is what? Is it all about families and keeping them together? Does it relate to helping to get jobs? Is it focused primarily on nutrition? What is the mandate and the role that you play in the community?
The whole agency, or the?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The community action programs were formed as part of the war on poverty under President Johnson, and so there are different aspects to that. We have GED classes to try to help people improve their educational level, to help them find employment. We do some employment placing. And then on the food program, some people are, particularly elderly people, are in need of food aid, but also people whose houses burn down or who get laid off.
Yep.
They need food aid temporarily.
In a transition, in an emergency, things like that.
Yeah.
So you do all of that. And I know
we
you
do
do it
both
through
of
your
those.
market. And do you also deliver, or is it everybody
No, they
comes to that
come
facility?
the,
or?
people come to the marketplace
Okay.
there in Buttonwoods in the
Okay.
Job Lot Plaza.
Okay. Give us a minute. We'll be right back.
Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Lights there, darts there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
We're back on ReNewable now. So it's not raining today, which is good because, man, we got soaked out at City Park. What are some of the things going on at Rocky Point? I think you had mentioned there was some tree plantings, and that took quite an effort too.
Well, as Dan had mentioned, the city workers did a lot of work removing asphalt because it had been paved. Large portions of the park now had been paved. Once we removed the asphalt, we were able to have a partnership with Pepsi and Shaw's, who provided trees for Rocky Point. We worked together with the city workers, the corporate sponsors, and volunteers that had been brought to the site and planted approximately 25 to 30 trees at Rocky Point. So now these trees will be able to really enhance the experience of the people that come there.
Yep.
We'll be providing shade.
Yep.
They'll be able to capture the water and filtrate before it is going back onto
Absolutely,
the
all
ocean.
sorts of benefits. But Rocky Point, will it develop more? Are there plans for more recreation? What should happen, do you think? You said you have 41 acres there?
The city has 41 acres, which is
What do you
subject-
think should happen there, Dan?
It will remain the city portion will remain a public passive park. There were conservation restrictions on it from both DEM and NOAA.
But should it become more recreational? Should you add other elements? What do you think is the best use of that site?
The remainder of the property, the other 70 acres, which is still in federal receivership, the state is attempting to purchase that and possibly make a state park. So that's portion of the property. You may see major changes. The city portion will remain relatively what it is today, place to go, take a walk, go fishing, that type of thing. You won't see any active recreation on the city's portion of the 41 acres.
Now, Dan, you work obviously a lot in planning. You've been looking at a lot of the changes taking place in this city and potential changes in Apponaug, changes in and around the airport here in that district. Do you spend a lot of time contemplating those changes as it relates to, the big thing we look at is when we look at a history of a city, and there was development early on. You can look in Rhode Island and you can see old buildings and old textile plants, and you can see those facilities that had gotten deserted, and what was left behind was empty buildings and pollution. But do you spend a lot of time looking at more sustainable development and how it relates to use of water and use of natural resources, and kind of take a look at the things you want to preserve but the things you want to develop here in the city?
We absolutely do, through a variety of mechanisms. For example, Greenwich Bay, which is a great resource for the city, both for recreational, for commercial shellfishing, for natural habitat. We worked with the state Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council. We now have what's called a special area management plan for Greenwich Bay. And really it's geared towards looking at all the steps we can take to improve and protect the water quality. We look at buffer management programs when a property comes in for redevelopment. We look at things we can do. You want to prevent impervious surface. We use dry wells. We've talked about rain gardens in certain areas.
And you've invested a lot of money in infrastructure, sewers, things
Yes,
that have clearly
absolutely.
changed the future of the bay. Parks and recreation, is that because tourism's very big, obviously, in Warwick. It's very important to you. Parks and recreation, is that a big push? Again, is there more development? What's going on in City Park, Garter Park, places like that?
We were talking before we came about the city's park system along the coast, which is just a fabulous opportunity to develop for people to come and see. It's in Patuxent Village, for example. Every year there's an arts festival. There is, of course, a Gatsby Day parade,
Right, still huge
celebrating
here, right,
our colonial history. And if you start in Patuxent Village at the Warwick line and move down the coastline, there's Patuxent Village Park, Salter Grove Memorial Park, Konnemicut Point,
Gatsby Overlook.
Gatsby Overlook.
Right, and you talked about potentially trying to even link some of these things to make it where it would be easier maybe to travel by boat, by bike. I don't know. How do you link them? How do you make them kind of more part of the landscape here?
That's a big part of what we're looking at in our new city comprehensive plan. I think when we went to the meetings where the public responded with what they were looking for as far as parks are going, their biggest comment was, let's try to make safe connections, take these green nodes, this kind of an emerald ocean necklace, so to speak, and just look at ways to connect them safely, whether it be pedestrians or if biking is possible, to incorporate
you've
that
worked
as well.
hard to create public access, obviously,
Yeah.
right? And you've worked hard to preserve some of this land, and now it's a matter of obviously making an asset of the city, making it attractive, making sure people use it, make sure they value it. Sometimes, again, I look at Warwick, and as I studied and looked at the history, I probably didn't realize, and I live here, the kind of dedication you have to agriculture, to preserving farms, obviously to the coastline that's still beautiful, that harkens back to 100 years ago. Last question for you, Steve. What's going to happen with West Bay Community Center? Are you expanding? Will you add additional funds? What else will you do to serve the community?
Well, a lot of that depends on Congress, because a lot of the funding for the West Bay Community Action Program comes out of Washington, and that's been on the chopping block, frankly. So in the big picture, that's, I think, going to determine what we do in the small picture on the farm. We're getting a little bigger every year. So the city expanded our lease last year, so we were able to grow in another area. So we're trying to expand our production.
And I've seen it. You serve a lot of people. It's an important element in this city and in this community. And so hopefully that you will continue to have the funding, be able to provide the services. The healthy food is wonderful, and again, it really fits in with the state. We even had talked in West Warwick with Thunder Mist Community Health Center, and how there's prescriptions for healthy fruits and vegetables. It's just a wonderful model. So it touches the economy in so many ways, healthcare and all of those things. So stay in business. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'll be back with some closing thoughts.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a 600-pound gorilla, able to pack any home in a single move. Look, pulling up to our house. It's a delivery. It's a truck. No, son, that's the Arpin Moving Guy. An advanced mover from the Arpin Group sent to defeat rogue movers and moving giants that provide bad home moves. He delivers customer satisfaction, quality work, and award-winning service. For a super move, call Arpin at 800-343-3500 or visit arpin.com. The Moving Guy, saving the world from bad moves, one customer at a time.
We are different. Society should aspire to be more like us.
Be part of the first class. Get energized. Get outside.
Hold on, guys. It's gonna get bumpy.
And get moving. Experience the power of physical activity. Join the movement at ActionHeroAlliance.com.
Nature's Rest, New England's most popular latex brand, is now exclusively at all Carty's Furniture and Carty's Furniture mattress locations. Nature's Rest eco-friendly construction includes a plant-based poly-support core with carbon-negative wood foundation base.
Latex is the Earth's best natural resource for sleep, and Nature's Rest mattresses are proven to provide superior pressure relief to give you a more restful, rejuvenating night's sleep.
Carty's Furniture and Carty's Furniture mattresses.
I am so glad we were able to bring Dan Keegan back to Renewable Now. Dan was with us on our Grow Smart show. I am so glad we were able to bring Dan Keegan back to Renewable Now. Dan was with us on our Grow Smart show, done right before their summit in Providence. And back then, we did not get a chance to talk to him about Warwick's growing farming community or their insightful resurrection of Rocky Point, a place that if you go out and you walk, which I did recently, you can almost hear the screams of kids coming off the many rides. Smell the chowder and the clam cakes getting wolfed down in between those rides. What I really love about this show, though, is seeing a nonprofit running its own farm and growing fresh food for its poor or elderly members. With the help of the city, the West Bay Community Action Center has got to be unique in its ability to feed some of the area's most needy citizens. On other shows, we've watched urban farming seeding in places like Pawtucket and Woonsocket. We've seen farmers markets booming. And now, we see a community get back to basics, get back to nature, and get somewhat self-sufficient in caring for their neighbors. What a wonderful part of the resurgence of agriculture in a state lucky enough to still control a lot of beautiful open land. Join me next week as the Renewable Now Tour gets knee-deep into the floods that knocked out the city's water treatment facility and closed down one of its newest and most efficient hotels. Yet we tell you the business side of Green's story of those facilities back up and running and better than ever.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a 600-pound gorilla, able to pack any home in a single move. Look, pulling up to our house. It's a delivery. It's a truck. No, son, that's the Arpin Moving Guy. An advanced mover from the Arpin Group sent to defeat rogue movers and moving giants that provide bad home moves. He delivers customer satisfaction, quality work, and award-winning service. For a super move, call Arpin at 800-343-3500 or visit arpin.com. The Moving Guy, saving the world from bad moves, one customer at a time.
We are different. Society should aspire to be more like us.
Be part of the first class. Get energized. Get outside.
Hold on, guys. It's gonna get bumpy.
And get moving. Experience the power of physical activity. Join the movement at actionheroalliance.com.